Thank you again for joining us for today's webinar, Digital Permits, Pitkin County's Journey with Revu, hosted by Bluebeam. I'm Mark Williams. I'm PR Manager for Bluebeam. And before I introduce today's host, Lillian Magianis, our Bluebeam Community Development Program Manager, and the host of our webinar series about governments and municipalities that are using Revu to streamline their processes, I just wanted to take a few minutes and share a little background about who Bluebeam is and how we partner with our industry to advance the way the world is built. And this will just take about 2 minutes, and I really do appreciate everyone's time. For those who design and engineer and bid and build our world, Bluebeam solutions boost productivity, they expand collaboration, and they increase accountability in the office and in the field. Since 2002, Bluebeam has made desktop, mobile, and cloud-based solutions for paperless workflows that set the standard for collaboration and workflow efficiency for design and construction professionals worldwide. We built our award-winning software to work as an essential workflow solution that puts all your project partners into one cohesive conversation that is built around the design documents themselves. In this way, Bluebeam solutions connect projects and teams. They reduce rework, they increase productivity, while they drive benefits where they really show up the most, which is in the savings of time. More than 1.9 million customers in more than 130 countries trust Bluebeam solutions to work smarter. Our collaborative platform, Bluebeam Studio, has hosted over 27 billion, yes, that's billion with a B, interactions since we first launched it in 2010. Bluebeam is used by 99 of the top 100 contractors as reported by ENR. It delivers powerful, measurable results across organizations and government agencies and individual project partners. And Bluebeam, we're proud advocates for the industry. We support over 30 international user groups. We're going to hear a little bit more about those user groups at the end of today's presentation, as well as industry organizations that are pursuing standards and advancing AEC technology concepts worldwide. We were founded in Pasadena, California. As the industry has grown, so have we. We've now opened additional offices in San Diego, Chicago, Dallas, Manchester, New Hampshire, London, Stockholm, Copenhagen, Munich, and our newest office that just opened in Brisbane. Bluebeam developed Revu to specifically meet challenges by making drawings and plans and documents work smarter. And it's a focus on focusing on our users to truly understand the challenges they face that has enabled us to design solutions that deliver measurable, trackable benefits. We do this by expanding real-time access to relevant data, by standardizing processes and workflows to increase predictability and allow teams to quickly respond to project changes, by producing more consistent deliverables, better quality documentation, generating estimates more quickly, improving visibility and accountability. The list goes on. These efficiencies deliver benefits that can be directly measured and tracked over time. We've surveyed through a division we have called Bluebeam Global Services, users at individual companies, and they've reported these quantifiable savings in time, improved work quality, and boosted productivity that can directly then be tied to their increased efficiency. So thank you again for joining us for today. Thank you for joining me for the backstory here about Bluebeam and who we are and what we do. That concludes my part of today's presentation. I'd like to hand it over to today's host, Lillian Magianis, who's going to introduce our presenters and kick things off. Lily?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mark. Oh man, I am so excited to be here, once again with all of you. These municipality webinars truly is a passion of mine for the last couple of months. Having worked on a public works project myself before working for Bluebeam, and then having the opportunity to work alongside many municipalities and cities and helping them implement Revu and transforming their digital workflows of permit reviews. This is just another great way for me to reconnect with everyone and just show the power of Revu. I'm honored to present today's presenters, Skylar Clay, Brian Prowl, and Alex Sanchez. All of them from Pitkin County. I've known, these faces for quite some time. I've been admiring for for many years, the fact that they've been so open and wanting to really, implement technology into the county. We know that government tends to have this stigma of slow adoption, but I've been, there are so many great cities and municipalities who are embracing the technology and implementing and finding innovative ways to implement those processes in there. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Skylar take it away. So are you guys ready? So we'll do a switch of
Yes.
screens in just a second. Awesome. All right, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you for that great introduction, Lillian.
We're looking good.
Okay. Well, I'll start off.
Brian?
My name is Brian. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Skylar. Thanks for the handoff there. Thanks for bringing up the screen. So my name is Brian Paul. I am the Chief Building Official for Pitkin County, Colorado. So we'll give you a quick overview of that in a moment here. I'd like to just take a moment and introduce our project team. Our project sponsor was our Community Development Director, Cindy Hubin. Our project sponsor from the BITS department and our IT department is Carrie Fleischman. I was the change manager as well as the management lead as far as being a SME as far as process and the way we were doing business. Skylar Clay was one of our project managers. He's from the BPA, he's a BPA from the BITS department. Alex Sanchez was a project manager as well. He's an administrative assistant and specialist from our ComDev department. Project management team included another member from BITS, Jeremy Junkin, and another member from the admin staff of ComDev, Bonnie Shiles. And we were the development team and the team that worked directly with Sages to do the analyzation of our current workflow and then how we were going to work in a new environment with digital plan review. Next slide, please. So today's learning objectives in this webinar: Pitkin County's directive to go digital, community development's priorities, digital plan review process, the digitization of the historical documents and archival, the digital permit tracking system, and then we're going to move on into looking forward with the future build out and additional integrations, refining our current workflows for a digital world. I'm going to be handling the history because I'm the most Jurassic member of the team. Alex once said that if I was on a dating app, it would have to be a radiocarbon dating app. So that's kind of my intro joke. The background: we're located in the heart of the White River National Forest. Pitkin County covers, I'm covering my own details there, 975 square miles. The total population of Pitkin County is 17,845, but the daily population can rise with tourists up to 60,000. The median household income for Pitkin County's residents is $71,196, but the average wage for the jobs in towns are about $49,460. So we have a very unique, we have the rich and famous who own the trophy houses, and then we have your average citizens trying to make a living in Pitkin County. The county seat sits in Aspen, and that's when our office is. It's on Main Street, downtown Aspen, Colorado. It was established in 1881 and became a home rule county in 1978, and that was when our first building code was adopted. That means Pitkin County has the authority to establish and organize the structure of county government via a document known as the Pitkin County Home Rule Charter. We have a 5-member board of county commissioners, and they were the ones that authorized us to go with this digital process and gave us the original directive to the entire county to go into paperless. Next slide, Scott. So the directive to digital, in 2012, all county received a directive that we were going to go paperless, and we were no longer going to process everything and all the paperwork we had. And at the time, we had all of our files strewn across every wall in our building departments, and we had plan tables full of hanging drawings, and all the process was done with multiple copies of multiple documents being handed back and forth from zoning to engineering to the building department, as all departments kind of do across the boards for the most part. So our issues that we had to address were having a digital plan review process, scanning all those documents, including our cold storage, which was full of all of our paper plans and the hantavirus, because it was just a scary outdoor storage room, and then turning all of our digital process into an actual digital process. Next slide. At the time, Eden was our legacy permit. It's a Tyler. Oh, sorry, Skylar's going to go into this. Skylar,
Yeah, Skylar Clay here, business process analyst for Pitkin County, and was a project manager on this project. And I'm going to lay out sort of the steps that we took to achieve that digital directive that landed at the Sages. So Eden by Tyler Technologies was our legacy permitting system. It was purchased in 2007. It was very limiting in a lot of ways. It had no integration capabilities and was hosted on premise. It required lots of staff effort in order to coordinate all of the pieces that we needed to achieve a permitting system, being data storage, tracking, review process, signatures, payment processing, and archival. In 2016, after some research, Community Development Department purchased Bluebeam and went live with the digital plan review process. Now, mostly at this point in time, it was staff that was using this, although we had changed our requirements to receive only digital submissions at that time as well. And then further on, once we had worked through our digital review process with Bluebeam and developed workflows to accommodate our entire permitting process, we, in 2019, implemented an iPad inspection process, also using Bluebeam, in conjunction with Smartsheet to track and use the notifications from that system. Laserfiche has been our longstanding archival system. As part of that digital directive, ComDev scanned all those paper documents that they had from the past in 2018. At that time, anytime a permit or a project was finished, staff was manually concatenating those digital files. It was a very lengthy process, concatenating floor plans and manually uploading those into our archival record in Laserfiche. In 2016, we began using our state application, merchant processing application called Payport. And it was a very simple checkout application that still required a lot of manual effort in order to cross-reference in between systems and make sure we had all the receipt data in Eden, so on and so forth. And then one of the last pieces we pulled in for the digital transition was in 2017, we began using DocuSign, and community development quickly became the power users within Pitkin County, getting all permits signed and affidavits or any documents throughout the process. At that point in time, these digitally signed documents still had to be concatenated in for our Laserfiche archival record. So in 2017, we issued an RFP because we knew that we needed to get a new system to try to integrate all of these pieces. And we only yielded one bidder in our first RFP. So we went back to the drawing board and took some time trying to figure out what we may have communicated wrong and trying to see how we could simplify the RFP. So a year later, we reissued the RFP and yielded significantly more bidders. We went through a whole review process and selected a company called SagesGov out of Atlanta. And we just went through a 10-month project, implementation project with configuration, data migration from our old permits, historical permits, staff training, user acceptance testing, and finally we went live in May 2020. And now we are working through some post-go live issues and bugs, but for the most part, things are running really smoothly. So SagesGov was that permitting application and tracking system that is now one seamlessly integrated application that connects all of the previously mentioned applications. So Bluebeam is used for our digital plans review. You just click out of Sages to open up those files. There's a Bluebeam Studio integration, DocuSign, when permits need to be signed, the applicant can log into Sages directly and sign via DocuSign in that interface. We have upgraded to Forte payment solutions, which is very well integrated with SagesGov. And we're still using Laserfiche for archival, but that process has now been automated so that it is very minimal human effort, if any at all, to get those files and their metadata uploaded into Laserfiche. Brian, so I'm going to hand that back to you.
Thank you, Skylar. And I'm going to jump into our current climate that we're dealing with in the current snapshot. But I want to jump back a little bit on some of the stuff Skylar talked about and I talked about in the current history is why we chose Bluebeam. We were actually struggling with an adoption at the time of a full-blown process that was an integrated plan review process with Bluebeam. And at that time, that fell through, and we saw Bluebeam as a great starting point. And so we adopted that first. And that was the exciting part of bringing Bluebeam into that. And we went to our first San Diego conference with Bluebeam and learned what it was capable of doing and what it wasn't capable of doing, because we thought maybe we could meet all of our needs just with Bluebeam. We learned from that we still needed to shop for a way to integrate well, and that's why it's so exciting now to have Sages as the kind of the glue that holds it all together and allows us to do our issuance and our tracking and our intake, do our review within Bluebeam, and then do our payment collection and all those things seamlessly. So it's very exciting to have this full integration at this time. It's taken us a long road to get there, but I think we stepped back a couple times, really analyzed where we were going and how we were going to get there. And then we come to this point of the COVID world, and the current snapshot is showing that we've tried to make Sages and Bluebeam work for all of our departments, all of ComDev, the building, environmental health, planning departments, and code enforcement. We have a code enforcement module, and everything now is moved into a digital world. We can submit, the applicant can go online, submit a permit, and it goes directly into a PDF format that can be sent right into Bluebeam for review. We can send out notifications when fees are due at any time during the process, when we do the intake or when we finish a section of review or when we go to issue. It's a centralized location for all of our staff comments, and it actually uses Bluebeam's summary tool in a way that Sages is integrated to be able to pull that information out and give deficiency reports back to the applicant and let them know exactly what needs to be fixed on the plans to be acceptable. And that information is all accessible to the applicant. They can sign on to the portal and view the progress as it goes along. And then at the end, we've even automated that process so that it takes those files straight out of Bluebeam and sends them to our archival system, Laserfiche. So pretty exciting. Feedback. Difficult initial cleanup of active permits migrated from the legacy system. Yeah, that's part of our growing pains as we tried to implement this system was the migration wasn't as clean. It brought in base permits, but we still had to kind of tie other permits to it and kind of integrate the sub permits and open it all up for the inspection process to be linked to the stuff in the new system. But those were some of our growing pains. And the public process, they seemed to think it was difficult to learn at first, but as we get more into it and have done a better job of working directly with the public, we feel like we've given them some good guidance and guidelines on how to submit digitally now. And it's a continuing education process. We continue to work with the public on how to better improve the quality of submissions. So at this time, we still do a live pre-submittal meeting with the public. And we actually have been doing that on Zoom during the COVID world. And people can attend that from our department and from the public. And we can actually spend a lot of time kind of going over those documents before we just enter them into the system. So next slide, considerations. Decision to roll out during a pandemic. So that was scary. We were in the midst of our purchase of Sages and thinking about whether or not this is the right timing to go live with it. And our rollout time was coming to fruition, and our contractual obligation with the company was hitting its peak. And here we were in the midst of nobody working in the office. We were all working remotely and trying to adjust to that world as it was. But then we thought, what better time to actually come up with a digital way to submit drawings to a county and actually have things be visible to the public and visible to us remotely and be able to run through that. So our considerations were the contractual obligation was coming to fruition, the practicality and logistics of doing this, the budget implications if the timeline protracted or if we had to go and do any delays because of our busy building season approaching. So we did a contractor survey, Survey Monkey, to kind of see what the temperature was out in the community. And it actually came back positive that they thought too that this was a great time to roll out a digital process and to go this way. So right after that decision was made, we had to shut down all construction, and because of COVID numbers rising so much in our area. So we did a shutdown, full shutdown of all 180 active Pitkin County projects, and even the projects within the incorporated towns within Pitkin County. And then 3 weeks later, we were given the approval from Public Health to open that back up. So it was pretty crazy times to be rolling out a digital project. We fortunately had a year contract with some temp staff and what actually geared up for this because we kind of foresaw the needs to have the business ready for this change. So we had the team in place and we attacked it and we went into it and we said, we're going to make this happen. And we went digital at the end of that process and rolled out during a pandemic. Is this where you're taking over, Alex, or is this still me? Nope, here I am. One-on-one virtual help. We had 46 meetings for the first week after go live. We offered seminars, training, because we couldn't do live training with the public. So we invited contractors to sign on, and Alex actually gave webinars. We had virtual workshops that people could come on, sign on to, and participate. We had 27 participants in the first week after go live, trying to learn exactly how this process worked and what changes were to be made. Fortunately, since we kind of ramped up to this point, we had built the processes and laid out the groundwork and the foundation to kind of go into this full-on digital program. So people were ready for the type of documents we needed. They were ready for how to format things. They were ready to have that dialogue and discussion. So Skylar and Alex and the BITS team created how-to documents for the public, and we actually allow them to train at home and do their own online training, how-to videos, how-to documents they could read on our website. And we still giving them the phone and email option to contact people if we need to walk them through manually and get them into it. And the inspection line is still kind of in the email phase, but we're phasing that out and introducing that through Sages. Part of that was due to our migration issues and trying to get that system all up and live. So next slide. So now we have a little quick practical demonstration video of how Sages works to integrate into Bluebeam. So this video is it's a little blurry, but it's demonstrating how somebody would sign on internally, open up the Bluebeam documents through Sages, it opens up a session started by Sages and downloads all the documents. And all your full Bluebeam functionality is available to you, even though it's a integration and access through Sages. This is full Bluebeam Revu. So any markup you want to add, any measurements you want to take, any tools you want to use along the way. You can insert documents here, and there's ways to do that, but it works better because Sages owns the session to enter in through Sages and upload any additional documents or anything you want to work with through the Sages. And there he goes, going through the normal toolbars and adding in a comment. And so text boxes work, call outs, everything is identical to your normal just signing into Bluebeam. And that licensing is can be incorporated into when you work with Sages, or it can be separate. I think right now everything's right through Bluebeam, and we have contracts still with them, but there are options for all of that as well. So here he is changing the color of the text, the size of the box, resizing things, moving around and maneuvering just as you would in Bluebeam Revu. The exciting thing is when we get to the end of all these add-ons, we'll show you the end result that comes out in a full summary report, as I was saying in some of the earlier history we were giving you on this. So you can resize things, move around just as if you were doing your normal functions. Guess we should have timed our video because I'm running out of exciting dialogue to give you. But here he is doing a measurement, doing a takeoff. It's not a comparison measurement. It just shows you that all the functionality is still there. So now he's exiting. Actually, no, he's just recalculating that measurement and changing all of the scale and calibrating and showing that all those tools still work totally within the Bluebeam Revu. We currently have two ways of accessing Bluebeam. We can do it in the sessions format, but we also have a simpler, older format called BFX that has some different functionality. And we use that for our sub-permits and some minor things because you don't have to do shared sessions and collaborative reviews in those smaller permit types. So the BFX protocol is a little different. The documents are more compatible or comparable to a project in the way that you access them and the way that you maneuver. So if you're not familiar with the studio format, these sessions are based on the studio format. So the way that it looks and the way that it feels is all based on studio. I think we're getting to the end of the markups. We show that you can add stuff and then delete it back off, move around just as if you were doing your full review. Going into markups, adding a typewriter function. Typing notations directly on the plan. Changing text colors. Adding a rectangle. Adding a call out within that rectangle. Actually, no, adding a rectangle. Adding a call out within that rectangle now. Typing incorrectly like we all do when we're doing a presentation. And now going out to leave studio and go back to Sages to close this out. So going back to where the document page was, we leave the session, exit through Sages. It downloads all of our comments, all of our markups, brings everything back into Sages for public viewing on our public portal. Once you refresh that, it shows it's been saved. And there's your summary page that comes directly out of the markups that went onto the Bluebeam review. And they've all been captured here in this first review cycle. And those are all published to the applicant. So we can use that for our deficiencies and explain exactly what we were talking about on the comment box. There's also additional comments that can be made in that predefined comments tab there. You can actually type in different communications to the applicant as well. So here we are entering the final results, approving the review, saying it took us 30 minutes to look at that one drawing, and submitting that as an approved plan review. All right, thank you for following along on that video.
Yeah, thanks. So Alex Sanchez here, project manager on the PATH project here, and also work with community development. Kind of be discussing now where we're going with this section, and also some facts and figures of just the past 2 months that we were able to pull. So looking forward, we are going to look to additionally build out some of this this PATH program or the Sages software. Our planning department wasn't as fully built out because their workflows aren't as fully refined. So we're going to continue to try and revisit that and see how we can bring them more into the digital world or ways that we can refine that workflow. There's also potential to integrate with a software that our landfill's using to track debris and diversion from the waste in the construction. And so we'll be looking at some additional integrations there to, again, try and bring all these different systems into one. Another thing that we are currently doing with staff, we're holding mini retreats about an hour every other week. So that way we can discuss what our current workflow is and what the new digital software requires, and then how those two can meet. I think a lot of the project, we were trying to replicate our current workflow into a digital world and never really taking time to say, does it make the most sense in a lot of these different areas? You know, somewhere before where there was a centralized person, you know, the software kind of becomes that centralized person. So a lot of roles have really shifted within what we used to do and what we're doing now. So I think it's really important at any point in time, if you're undertaking a project like this, to, you know, make sure you have your current workflow mapped out, and then also that future workflow that you're looking to accomplish, because that will change, but at least having it documented makes it a little easier to move the different pieces as you get into a digital world. Skylar, if you'd like to go to the next slide. So some facts on kind of the project. Within the first week of going live, we had 95 new accounts that were set up. Next slide, please. After that, in the first month of our go live, we had 248 accounts set up. And then a month following that, we were at 367. So back on the 18th. I think those are really great numbers to show kind of the adoption that we've had from the public with the new software. The other great side that we were able to pull, and going digital, I think, is really great, or having a software that's digital, because it allows you to report. And I know facts and figures are on the forefront of many people's mind when they're trying to make decisions, especially in this day and age. And so the move to digital allowed us to pull these figures that we have here. I wanted to try and make it a one-to-one comparison, so pulled the similar date ranges from 2019 and 2018 on what we're able to collect revenue-wise. And you can see there we collected more in 2020. Now, when you take into account there was a pandemic, a recession, a lot of these other factors, I think that's a really important number to look at, and then trying to dissect further what was the reasoning there. One of the things that was mentioned that we were able to get with this digital software was an integration with Forte. So while we were remote, while we weren't able to process payments in person, we were still able to allow the public to pay for their fees, permit fees, and continue that portion even though we weren't in the office. So we didn't lose out on any of that revenue, and I think we've actually were able to increase as a result of it, because so many more applicants could get to their fees and pay, and we're seeing that from the numbers. And Skylar, if you'd like to go to the next slide here. So the second month after that, again, trying to stick with this similar comparison, we don't see a dip in revenues when compared with previous years there as well. So I just think these numbers are, pretty startling, and a good reason to try and justify, going digital, or at least some aspect digital, because you're able to continue payments and collect those revenues throughout. So I'd like to go to the one after this. Again, just some last numbers that we'd like to show here. Permits applied within those time frames, again, a month after go live, and then a second month after go live. I see the bottom there is kind of cut off, but the little asterisk that we have on environmental health was they were assisting and leading a lot of the COVID efforts. So the low permit counts in the first month and the drastically high permit counts in the second month was due to that backlog that they weren't able to get to in that period. But again, just really good numbers. And I think it kind of, again, shows the revenue and what we're seeing in community development as a result of the efficiencies we gained with this system. I'd like to go to the next slide, Scott. So our vendor, again, SagesGov, they have some slides that they requested we include in this presentation. Here's the contact information for anybody who is interested in this software, would like to follow up. Please reach out to the numbers listed here. Just some background on them. Again, over 20 years plus experience implementing this. We are currently working with the online permitting and payments, code enforcement, mobile inspection, and doing the plan review process as well. So we can attest to that. Here's a little more background on their integration with Bluebeam. And this is kind of a quicker version of that demonstration that we just walked through in our video. But you can see here some of those different buttons and things that are accomplished within the Sages Bluebeam integration. And then various jurisdictions that have integrated or used Sages as well. So a list here, which you can follow up with if you have any questions about the Sages product. And with that, we'll also have our contact information here should you have any questions regarding this project or anything else. Take a moment to pause there. But with that, that concludes our presentation for Pitkin County's transition to a digital process. We'll now hand it back to Lillian and Bluebeam. Thank you so much for allowing us to take time out of your day to present about this really unique project that I think we've accomplished here.
Wow, thank you so much. This was a really, really great presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and show my screen in just a second. So we have a couple minutes, and was wondering if you guys were open to taking some questions from the audience.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.
Sure.
Great. So I really love how you guys leverage Sage to really help you streamline the process from the intake process, from the applicant, having to submit their application, their payment, and uploading their plan set, and then leveraging the Sage integration to really, go directly into that collaboration platform and getting your internal reviewers onto that session for them to comment or mark up, and then pushing that back, all of those corrections back to the applicant. So I thought that was really, really well done and very well explained. There's a couple of questions that are a little bit over the place. I'm going to try to keep them very, I'll try to keep a good flow in here. So, first question here is, for the intake process, is Pitkin County currently, asking, having specific PDF requirements? If so, what typically do you ask the applicants to require, how to submit their PDFs, and do you have additional information on your website so folks can see what that looks like? And this could be for anyone who wants to jump in and answer.
Who's going to jump up first?
Yeah, Brian, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I haven't been happy to talking first, so I'm learning to wait a second. But so yeah, being the chief building official, I work directly with my permit tech group on what intake protocol we want to establish, and we actually have published standards on the scale of the drawings, and that they are vector and not raster, and that they are live PDFs, and yet there's certain things that need to be turned off and turned on, and we have all those things kind of mapped out for the public. And it's not held to an exacting standard, it's just kind of some guidance so that we don't get things all over the map. And with Sages now going to the full digital process, everything has to come in PDF, and we locked the file types down within the intake. So if they're having trouble uploading stuff, it's intentional. They find that they have to convert things. We can open that up, and we have on some documents, like we have some miscellaneous files that can be taken in as non-PDF. But we want everything to be capable of being pushed into Bluebeam and actually be available to the reviewers to have access to all that. So we really tried to standardize that.
That's awesome. Next question, and this is about more towards the review process. The question is, during the review process that can usually take a couple of months for larger projects, the person wants to know, where are the documents stored and how are they accessed by the applicant?
Yeah, I can talk
I
to
can take this one.
currently.
Yeah, I thought Skylar.
Got
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Well, either one.
Yeah, so the files actually live within Sages throughout the life cycle of the permit, all the way until archival. So the applicant submits online, they live within Sages, and the applicant can actually visit their case and see the documents as well as deficiency reports, and the markups from different review rounds within Sages. The integration just opens the files within a pre-created session in Bluebeam. So the files actually live in Sages until the project is completed, and then they're pushed into Laserfiche.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we aren't here to sell Sages, but one of the reasons what we went with them was that we can actually turn it on where the public could add revisions within a review cycle, or turn that off so they can't add revised documents into the documents while we're in the middle of a review cycle. So it all depends on how your jurisdiction would hope to work with the public. We lock it down and actually complete a cycle, give them a full deficiencies report, and then send that out. But some jurisdictions may want to have that back and forth. So you can actually open up and take in revisions, and they'll upload into Bluebeam and let people know with a notification that new documents have been added. So it's been a good tool for us.
Mm-hmm. Brian, I'm glad that you mentioned, that you close a session, then create the deficiency report for the applicant, and then reopen a new one when there's a new submission coming in. I do know of a lot of jurisdictions or cities who, keep the same session open for the extent of that entire review of that plan. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's always a common question that we get. Curious, how did you, was there any testing on your part or piloting for you to determine that the best way that's going to work for Pitkin County is to have, a standalone session for each submission? Can you kind of talk a little bit more about that decision?
Yeah, so that started when we had just integrated with Bluebeam in 2016, and it most mirrored what we were doing in the paper world, as far as all of our review groups would get together, summarize all their comments, and then we would send a version of that comments back to the applicant. So they weren't working on different aspects of the projects independently and maybe causing redraws or issues along the way that would impact other departments. And you would either have to let everybody do their back and forth and then somebody do a compilation at the end to make sure there was no conflicts, or you have to do it this way where all the comments go back at once. If there's questions about overlap or redundancies, that can be discussed, and then that can go back in one packet to the applicants. So when we were doing that in the paper world, it seemed to really work for our departments. So that's what we emulated in the digital world.
Awesome, thank you for answering that question. And then this kind of, I'm going to ask this second question. It's sort of related to what you just said. So when you're sending the letter to the applicant, do you tend to send a separate letter to the applicant, or just, or just use the markup summary report that in review? And also the second part of that question is, does the applicant have access to the Bluebeam session?
So starting with that one, because that's a big one, no, they don't. They aren't able to collaborate in the session itself with us. That's internal. We don't send this. Well, it's interesting. The summary is a compilation of what came out of SAGES and maybe additional comments from the review groups, and it sometimes offers up direct contact with those review groups to talk deeper in depth of what was just shown on a quick call up or a markup. So sometimes that just is a door opener or an introduction to a deeper dialogue. But we do send out that summary straight out of SAGES to the applicant, and they have full access to that. And it actually links, just like Bluebeam's functionality with the hyperlinks. You can actually set it up to hyperlink to those comments right on the sheet, so you know exactly what sheet comments are on and how to make the corrections. So.
Oh, that's great. Excuse me. That's awesome that you can link from the report back to the document. This actually ties into the next question from a user. When an applicant uploads plans and staff opens in Bluebeam via SAGES, are there any restrictions or security placed on the document?
As far as not being able to accidentally delete something or alter the person's stamp or change the document, is that what you're kind of alluding to?
Well,
yes.
Yeah, this is what the question was asked, but given the last couple of webinars that we hosted, I have a pretty good idea, sort of the context behind this question. So last month we hosted a Bluebeam user group for Bluebeam government user group, and it was about digital signatures. And the question that, I imagine that the sort of the context behind this question is oftentimes when cities receive, plan sets from a design firm, they tend to get locked out because they either digitally signed it or they've added some restriction to the PDF. Do you know when so I imagine the question is coming from that little bit of context.
Okay.
When the PDFs are being uploaded, are there any restrictions placed on the document when they get exported out of SAGES?
Yeah, so what we kind of had that as the chief building official. I had that dialogue with our attorney's office about digital stamps and digital signatures, and some engineers actually wanted to have a big meeting to discuss that protection. And the way that the state protection is really kind of in place, and the way that our attorneys kind of see it, is it's just verifying that that person's proprietary information is protected and what they submitted to us is genuine and from that source. So we take that in and take that into consideration when we accept the initial certificate into us as the county, being the legal representative accepting that as proof that that's who that is. But what we do is we save a copy of that certified document, and then we open up a version of that we can actually put our stamps on, so that we have both records and we can compare them and make sure that there's been no adjustments or changes to that person's information. But we create our alternative set that's issued as the now authorized and approved building set. So we have proof that the sets are identical and came from a certified source, but we're still able to do our work and issue a document at the end.
And if I could just add on to that too.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I just kind of want to touch on the way that the software is currently set up too. An applicant goes through the permit to say submit a building, and they're in that process uploading files, so they can upload 6, 7 files, whatever they need. And then that project shows up under that applicant's work list, so they can always go back to refer. There's a files tab, so there they can view the files, but they can't alter them. That's restricted down to the permit tech. So an applicant could say, hey, I missed something, let me upload this. It doesn't immediately get added to the file. There's kind of a quality check, and that's where the permit tech is, being reintroduced here in a newer role that we're talking as we kind of refine it, that as new documents are uploaded, throughout the life cycle of a project, there's kind of that review before it gets just automatically added. And so you gain a little more efficiency there, or just, I guess, a better process, because you can't really slip in documents as you could have in the paper process, because there is that hard stop and requirement of somebody else coming in and approving that. So that's how we have that set up currently too.
Well, and that's another layer of security protocol that's there too, is we have licensed contractors in our jurisdiction. And so you have to be a licensed contractor to set up an account to even submit drawings to us. So we are able to track the source of any documents that come into our office as well through that format, because it's tied to that person's IP address or whatever. So it's linked to whoever that applicant is, and all their information is saved as far as their contact information and who we're dealing with. So there is layers of security within even our intake process as far as who can submit and what authorities they have, like Alex was saying, to manipulate documents from the outside. I thought you were talking about mostly was protecting their stamps and their proprietary information on the inside and making sure we're not altering stamp drawings. So either way, I think we're pretty covered in all of that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I'll have 2 more questions and then we'll start to close it up. One question here is, why choose sessions and not projects?
That's the way that Sages was integrated. And a lot of our employees like the projects because they have more authority and can delete things and change things and add things and whatever. But there is a little bit of protection and security within a session. And we like that format. And we like the collaborative way of doing things within a session. It does sometimes come into play that it's harder to batch stamp things or do some certain operations that we're still kind of working through the kinks on, since Sages is the owner of the session. But we're enjoying that process. We have the BFX protocol, so some of them, like I said, our simpler stuff is done in more of a project format. But sessions is the integration that Sages has with Bluebeam.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that layer of accountability that you get with sessions, and also just removes that, red tape of giving everyone access at the same time instead of waiting for someone's turn to be over, so they're able to move on and pass it on to the next reviewer.
Yeah, because we never know when a reviewer is going to pick up their turn at something. So we have to have it open at all times for them to be able to join in.
Exactly. Yeah, and it has a great built-in alert system that you're still able to function, still use with your integration. So you're able to set alerts and see when someone is on or offline. So that's great. Final question. This is from our friends from City of Las Vegas. They said, great job, team. They love the summer report. And their question is, do you see any issue with the BFX protocol?
Well, I'm concerned that it's not going to be around forever. There's rumors that it's not long shelf life on it, but yeah, my concern as the change manager going into it was having 2 different protocols and having to train staff that sometimes is very set in their ways to operate under 2 different protocols. So initially I didn't even want to touch the BFX side of things, and I really wanted to have everything be in the session. I softened to that with the help of Skylar and Alex talking me through it, and came off my ledge and said maybe we try the small stuff that way. But the functionality is good. Exiting and entering the Bluebeam session, or not the session, but entering into Bluebeam is slightly different in how you close out. So there's a little bit of difference in operation, but the functionality is the same for the reviewers, and the experience is the same for the reviewers as far as working on the files. You have a little bit more flexibility in adding things within a Bluebeam review that you wouldn't in a session, as far as adding files or changing things, which is one of the reasons why we didn't open it up to the bigger projects, is it becomes, like I said, too fluid, and I like a little bit of control that you get from the session.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, I want to thank all three of you for taking this time today to really, share your process, share your journey of how you got here, and share some of the lessons learned. Especially, having, all of us are currently going through a pandemic, and and you're still, move forward, and you're seeing the benefits of that decision, and how you're winning on the other side. So I really want to thank you for that. I know that a lot of our government users, really just want to know, they love knowing how to, learn new functionalities in review and understanding the tools and features. But one of the things that they're always after is how do they do it? So I really want to thank you for really diving into the how and showing us that entire process. Oftentimes with Bluebeam, we can only focus on one slice of the pie, which is all within review. And I'm glad that you kind of show that beginning process, that intake process, that review process, and sort of that ending process for everyone to kind of see how things are coming together, and how they can digitally transform their permit review workflow. Not necessarily with Sage. I know that we have other integrations, so you're more than welcome to visit our integrations page at bluebeam.com and kind of see what, who else we're working with, or who else has other integrations with us. So I want to, again, thank you, all three of you.
Thank you.
And I want to, kind of just talk about the government Bluebeam user group. This is a great group. So if you're new to this webinar, or you've attended a couple of webinars in the past, that you really want to get connected, especially during this time, where we're all kind of taking that step back to, learn things, or, we have the extra time to, invest in, our development. This is a really great group to belong to. We host, government Bluebeam user groups every quarter. We always met virtually, so we will continue to meet virtually. Our next meeting, Angela and I are planning hopefully sometime in the month of December. We don't know the date or the topic. We're still kind of brainstorming ideas. We definitely want these, meetups to be, very valuable to you, for you to be able to connect with your peers, be able to, learn something valuable from us, and, just learn how others, other users are also being innovative with the tools and review, and what other integrations are also using. So if you're interested in being part of our, government user group, email us at communities@bluebeam.com and mention you watch this webinar. If you're watching the recording of this webinar, also mention this webinar, so we know, how'd you hear about us? So again, the next meeting will be in September. I'm excited with the ideas that Andrew and I are brainstorming, so hopefully it will be really great. If you're thinking about, you're currently in the middle of, different paths, with your digital transformation, and you need some help, Bluebeam Global Services team does offer consulting and training. They have experience working with other, government users in the past. So if you're interested in learning more, email them at training@bluebeam.com. After this webinar, there's like a quick 5-minute question, really quick. If you want us to reach out to give you more information, just make sure you answer that question following there. I also have some exciting news for those of you who are still here with us at the very end of the webinar. Bluebeam Revu 20 is coming in August. So I don't have a date for you to share, but I wanted to give this group a heads up that Bluebeam Revu 20 is coming. So if you want to know more, stay up to date, make sure you sign up for the Bluebeam newsletter. And with that, I want to thank not only our presenters, I want to thank everyone that attended this webinar. Our 4th and final municipality webinar series will happen August 25th, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So mark your calendars. We'll be sure to send invites and also post the invite through our social media channel. So again, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. I hope that this was valuable to you. So Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having us, Lillian. Everybody for listening.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.